Today's guest is someone who has been helping organizations elevate their customer experience from functional to phenomenal. Debbie Klintworth is a globally experienced CX strategist, coach, and the founder of Footprint Collective. Over the past 25 years, she's worked across New Zealand, Australia, the USA, and South Africa, partnering with blue chip brands to lead award-winning loyalty program, redesign customer journeys, and transform contact centers into engines of growth, all through a human-centered lens. Debbie's superpower lies in aligning people, purpose, and strategy, helping businesses create customer experiences that are not only memorable, but measurable. I'm thrilled to welcome her to the show. Welcome to the Kiwi CX Collective, Debbie Klintworth.
Thanks, Elias. Happy to be here.
Look, it's a pleasure to have you here, Debbie. And for our guests who might not have met you before, I had the opportunity to speak with you when we were in Sydney at a business conference. And when you started to share some of your background, I said, I've got to have Debbie on this podcast. So can you, for the audience that might not have met you before, give us some of your background in terms of your career, your credentials, and how that's affected, especially the aspect of contact centers and customer experience?
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Elias. I have quite a long background with customer contact centers in South Africa and abroad. And I started off about 15 years working with a big call center. We managed about 100 hotels and large resort and casino groups. And that was really exciting because we had so many different cultures and so many different audiences. So there was a lot of information that the contact center needed to learn and be on top of. So it was a varied role, extremely exciting. And from there, from the call center, I then also managed large customer experience positions, which took me abroad. So that enabled me to understand different geographies, different nationalities again. So one of the programs I worked for, or one of the companies I worked for, was a large multinational where we had about 13 properties in South America and about 24 in South Africa. And that was fantastic because it was different geographies, same call center answering the calls. So we dealt with different languages. We dealt 24/7, answering questions. And this is all pre-AI. A lot of it, we're talking years ago.
Wow. So did you say for one organization, 100 hotels?
Correct.
And a geography with multiple in terms of ethnic groups and backgrounds. And then
Correct.
The second one that was in different geographies as well.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
And did you also say that you're involved with customer loyalty programs and developing those with some of your customers, both here in New Zealand and overseas?
Absolutely. And that's how I got into the contact center because it pretty much fell under the remit of
Yep.
what I was doing. I was managing large loyalty programs and everything to do with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the customer engagement, the customer experience. And so it just made sense for the contact center to fall within my realm. And apart from that, we also managed big conference centers. We had about a 3,000 seat theater at one of the resorts. So we're talking, they were large resorts. One of the properties had about 20 million people come through the property, and we obviously had 24 of those. So it was large scale, which was also really exciting because the type of questions and the type of customers that we had was so varied.
Mm.
And so the knowledge base that we had within the contact center had to be strong, had to be a robust knowledge base. Again, this is pre-AI. So it was all about humans. It was about being empathetic, understanding the type of people that we actually hired was really, really key. And understanding the type of customers that we had and cross cultures. So it was a huge learning curve. We didn't always get it right, but we always stuck together as a team.
Well, this pre-AI world, you mentioned a really important element. So I want to take that and explore this a bit deeper. When you look at the frontline staff that you have in the contact centers that have this amazing array of products and services available within the complex, How did you ensure that your frontline teams were confident in the products that they supported?
Communicate. You can never over communicate to a customer center.
Yeah.
And so what we have done, a lot of trial and error. So marketing, I am also a marketer.
Yep.
And we come up with these amazing blue sky products and services often, but so often we forget to update the call center. And that's our first point of contact and often our last point of contact with our customers. You know, the call center staff actually are your goal because they can cross and upsell as well.
Yep.
And they need to know everything it is to know about your product. So what we've always done wherever I have managed the contact centers or even been in marketing is make sure that once we launch a product or service, in fact, even before we launch it, we meet with the contact center staff. We understand what type of questions they receive from customers. And even sometimes the contact center staff have pushed back and said, I don't think you should launch X, you should maybe look at it this way. So we've actually pivoted products and services based on feedback prior to launching it to the public. So yes, you can never over communicate, and you listen and listen. And listen again and ask questions. So we've learned that the contact center staff are absolutely pivotal to any business. You know, it's really not a cost center, it's actually a growth revenue center.
That is so encouraging to hear. It's not a cost center, it's growth revenue. I think contact centers can be that interface in the front line. They're the coal face between your customers and your organization.
Yes.
I'm just so encouraged to hear you say that you gave them a voice, allowed them to communicate in what often is seen as siloed environments.
Absolutely, yes.
When you look at that from a leadership perspective, what did you do that empowered your team to lead more effectively, considering that there might be a relatively small number of people in the general size of the organization, yet so pivotal with the communication back with your customers?
Absolutely key. So what we do is we do daily stand-ups, no matter what. So you know, the daily whips that you often find, agencies get it right. So daily stand-ups where we spoke about the challenges. So any challenging calls that came through the day before that anyone had. And actually before anyone answered, well, before as a leader, I would say, let's look at this. I would get the team members to give input and feedback because again, in case they've got a problem solve. So empowerment. So ensure that the team always felt empowered, and then obviously we're accountable, because often you're not given both of those, and you need to be accountable for what you've done. So or how you've assisted a customer, because you actually are the front face, as we said earlier, for a product or service or for the business. And with that, so the team actually have bought in. So we have a vision, and the team need to buy into the product that they are servicing. They've got to be passionate about the product that they're servicing, and they've got to understand, and they've got to understand the importance of the product. Not only that, but also understand everything is to know about the product or the service. So we've always empowered the team with the knowledge, great knowledge-based solution. That they've always a system that they've always had frequently asked questions, etc. So daily stand-ups, absolutely extremely important. There was a mandate. We literally, and the team loved it because they learned from each other. You know, we would sit and we'd laugh and we go, oh my goodness, we had this type of question, or how would you deal with that type of answer? So it was a collaborative experience, and the fact that the team were actually asked, they just loved that because they know what the questions the customers are asking. You know, so often people just think of the call center sort of the back room staff, and they just there to answer complaints, etc., etc. But no, it's so key that they feel part of marketing. They understand what the product set is, or as I said, the service that they're selling, and they actually know everything it is to know about the product. Absolutely key.
So you talked about knowledge base being a large integral part of that activity.
Yes.
Today, obviously, we're seeing the growth of AI. We're seeing how that's being used to then segment the information, pass it on to the agents, even live during a call. These were technologies that might not have been available, you know, when you were working in South Africa a number of years ago. Because you've been in New Zealand since 2010?
Since 2017.
2017, my apologies for that. Yeah. So it's nice to understand how we did it then, and now there's changes. But I'm sure that your team would have come under pressure. So when you did have those real pressured moments, how did you motivate your team? Because we're talking about people here.
Yes,
So how do
yes.
you motivate your team when the pressure is on?
Again, we had that collective vision. So we all bought into, and in fact, it was actually have each other's back,
Oh,
no matter
yes.
what. Have each other's back, but always put the customer first and always know that the customer's right.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the three things that we looked at. And then we, together as a team, so we asked questions, always ask and listen. So as a leader, you need to actually sit in on some of the calls with your team and understand what type of questions they are
Yep.
answering, because only then, if you actually walk the talk and you understand the pressures that they're dealing with. For example, if you launch a new product or service and you've got a lot more pressure on the team that they possibly weren't experiencing. For example, one of the companies I worked for in New Zealand, we were predominantly focusing on television and products, so entertainment, movies, sports. So the contact center knew what type of questions to invariably answer. It was subscription-based questions. All of a sudden, the company marketing decided to launch a ticket solution. Fantastic for the customers, absolutely win. It was a winning solution and a winning idea for a customer loyalty program, because you're adding value to the customers. But we actually forgot to even inform the contact center. And so what happened was it put a lot of pressure on the contact center staff. So they all of a sudden were doing a lot more administration. The FCR, decreased because they couldn't do fast response times. The CSATs, the CES, all of the scores just plummeted, and also the morale. So there was a lot more pressure on them. So what we did is, again, we did the daily stand-ups. We sat with them. We gave them as much information as we could. And also a lot of the hype, I think you ring bells if people have a wonderful customer experience and they actually share it. So we had teams versus teams and different pods talking about their wonderful experiences. So we often turned the problems and challenges into a happy and a solution, because again, different teams would say, well, this is how we would deal with it.
Yep.
So we actually created a wonderful team environment because we had each other's backs. So there was no such thing as an unhappy or a disgruntled contact center staff, because they knew that they were empowered and they were absolutely key to the business.
So that brings me probably two questions. I might merge them
Yes.
into one. First of all, it's about how do you build and maintain a strong team culture? And then when you're looking at that, but you got this change and there's resistance, I think, often to change.
Yes.
What did you learn from having change, but developing that team culture to cope with change?
Again, it's got to be communication. So I think as a leader of a contact center, you've got to have empathy, you've got to listen, you've got to ask the questions and make the team feel that in fact, they've got to know that you've got their back.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not just sitting at the back of an office somewhere answering queries, answering calls, and it's all just product, 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 product. They've got to realize again that they're empowered and that they are actually offering a service. So we always made the team feel super special. So we'd have, monthly cake days, or we'd give away gift cards and that sort of thing. But the most important thing, instead of just the gift cards, would be grocery cards, etc. We'd also give away experiences. So some of the experiences that the companies we were offering, so whether it be TV, then we'd also give them the tickets for them and their families. So they felt that they were actually buying in and they were actually able to experience the product that they were answering calls for, or the services that they were answering calls for. Or if it was a spa or a wonderful theatre production.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever type of business, so even if the services, honestly, as much as even a gift card, people just love that. It doesn't have to be something elaborate or extremely expensive, but we did this monthly. And so we also had a board that we had up, a values board, and we would always put on the board. So it was visual.
Yep.
We'd do daily shout outs, and again, in the stand-ups, we would always be there and just encourage each other.
It's fascinating to hear that, because when I was running managing a call center here in New Zealand, I remember looking at the staff and asking, how can we motivate you to do more?
Yeah.
And the first thought that came to my mind at the time was maybe I need to do something financial. I need to give them a pay increase or a voucher for. And yet, one of the number one rewards was getting a car park outside the building.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we actually put it to the teams. Every team, every contact center I've managed, I've always put it to the teams and said, what would you like to receive as a reward? So it was always reciprocal. So it was never a dictate. And again, it was teamwork. So we honestly, so open, clear communication, and they always felt that they were part of a team and that the leader had their back.
So then take us through potentially like an onboarding experience. I know you shared something with me before, but I want to explore this with you. Today, we have a lot of L&M systems in place where we can go there and do some online training and product development, etc.
Yes.
But tell me and explain to me some of the techniques you were using with your staff back in South Africa of how you got them to understand about the organization, the culture, the products, etc. What were you doing and why?
Yes, so it's always about human-centered design because we often forget about our people. And we look at scripting, we look at call center times, we look at all of those sort of things. So we look at data, which is obviously a key. But unless you've got the buy-in from your staff and the passion, it's going to come through in their call and in their voice and their tone. So what I did at a number of companies is on the onboarding experience, we actually ensured that every team member, and specifically the contact center was absolutely key because they were answering the questions, actually experienced the day in the life of a customer. So at one of the hotel groups and casino and resort groups I worked for, what we did was a new team member, so onboarding, absolutely, they did all the online courses, as you say, that invariably come through and you need to do, compliance, etc. But we also made fun days out. So it was actually just over a period of 2 days. And yes, it does sound like a lot. It was very resource intensive, etc. But it's absolutely key because you're setting that foundation. And you could just see it in the staff members because they bought into the product and the service. So what they would do is they would, some of the resorts, most of them, we would have security guards near the car park because it just was as it was. So they would spend a couple of, maybe about 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour actually, with the car guards, understanding the type of questions that people have. Even it was as simple as, where should we park? Or where is the resort? Where is the entertainment center? Where is the conference center? That sort of thing. So what type of questions? How was the security guards conversing with the staff members? With the customers.
Yeah.
And then they would go on, and then the next thing would be in the customer journey was the check-in desk. So they were checking into the hotel. They would spend some time with the check-in at the check-in counter. What type of questions were the customers being asked, etc., and vice versa. So then they got a good understanding from, again, the customer perspective. And then they would go and see how long it would take to actually turn a room over. They'd go and spend some time with some of the staff and just say, how long does it take to turn a room over, the kettle, the bed, etc. And then they would go and spend some time, just a very short, brief moment in the kitchen with the chef, maybe go and ice a cupcake, but understand the processes of the back end of a restaurant and how all of that worked. And then also go and watch waiters. They wouldn't go and waiter because that wasn't their staff, but we'd just get a table for them. They'd go and understand what or how would the waiters converse, etc. Because at the end of the day, we're all just cogs in a bigger wheel. And the call center are our most important key people.
So somebody listening to this might turn around and say, wow, Debbie, that is a big investment of time. And time is money.
Yes.
And we can't really afford to take our people and put them into all these other roles and put them through. How would you counter somebody who came up to you and said that? And why would you insist, if you had to do it again, that you do the same thing?
I would just say, how important is the customer to you? Because, again, we often sit in our white ivory towers and we're not dealing with our customers. Other people are. And those other people are the most important people, and that's the contact center staff. And that, again, goes back to hiring. You've got to hire people with passion and someone that's not just taking a contact center job because they can't find something else. They actually want to. It's almost the face of the. It's actually the face of the business. So they've also got to have a yearning for knowledge, because what we would always do is make sure, because also try and take people out of their comfort zones, because if you've got a company that offers various services, sometimes and it's really key to make sure that you marry the right type of personality with the service, as you know.
Yep.
But what we do is actually take people out of their comfort zones and go, no, you always should have 2 or 3 people that are able to sit in your place if something had to happen to you. So no, we need you to learn all the services over a period of a month or so, because we'd rotate staff. And then you'd find there wouldn't be, fatigue, or because also if you're answering the same questions, same type of questions or similar about the same service, you can get call fatigue. And then your passion also wanes. But if you are answering a varied questions around
Yep.
services, absolutely there's that passion. So that's what I would say to someone is, how important is the customer to you,
Yep.
really? And absolutely, it doesn't have to. I mean, we did take it out the norm because it was such a key important thing. We took 2 large companies that had 2, and they merged, and 2 completely different call centers, 2 IVRs, 4 different languages. We even had, we dealt with quite a few other things. And so what we needed to do was we needed people to literally walk in the steps of the customer.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about this. Obviously, you led that contact center through the merger of large hospitality group in Africa.
Yes.
But overnight, you had new services, new customer types, and the peak season coming.
Yes.
How did you scale fast without breaking the customer experience, and what changed for the team?
So with the upcoming peak season, it's busy time anyway, in the hospitality and tourism and casino and big resorts. It's busy anyway. So often we find a little bit of a fatigue. So around about October, November, we'd always do some fun, games, or bring out a table tennis table in the contact center area just to get the energy up. But obviously with the merging of 2 companies, we knew we had to quickly make sure that everything was in place. So what we did is we focused on the must-haves and we left the nice-to-haves. We started looking at daily priorities. So as a team with both contact centers, we all came together, and again, we co-created, what are we going to do? What type of questions do you get? Because bringing in 2 different companies, we had different types of culture. We had 2 different cultures. We had one company had legacy systems. The other one had great modern knowledge base. So again, it was exciting for the company that had the old legacy systems all of a sudden to have something new. And obviously the company that had great systems, and now you're taking on all the legacy systems. So it was interesting. We did have some pushback, obviously, because we're human, pushback from some of the staff because it was now additional workload, and they had to quickly pivot and learn all about the other products and services. So what we did is we upped the daily stand-ups.
Yep.
We created them to be, instead of 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. We all got together and we did quick, fast learnings. We spoke about the quick challenges, the quick opportunities, and then we also made sure that we always fed back. So we fed back, we closed the loop, and we had a shared knowledge base. So we created one shared system where people literally put in the frequently asked questions. We gave as much training and feedback to the teams as we could. We also then created 15-minute code training sessions. So we had the teams meet and they would just talk about their the best services and products, etc., within the teams. So we didn't necessarily expend money and bring people from the outside, because this is our contact center. They know what customers wanting.
Yeah.
They know what the customers' pain points are. And so we made it at the focus completely on the team. We said, you are the most fantastic team in the business. Forget about marketing, forget about IT, HR, everyone right now. You know what our customers need. We're going into a peak season. What do they need? Share and tell us. So it was absolute wonderful collaboration. And the ones that, the staff that were maybe laggards and whatnot and didn't want to change, quickly onboarded because what we did is we spent a lot more time with them.
Yeah.
So we checked in with them more than we would normally. Is everything okay? What do you need? What can we do as a company to make your life as simple as possible? Because you know everything there is to know about the customer. What feedback can we give you, etc. We obviously didn't have time to do what I mentioned earlier with the whole onboarding because that was different. They were already onboarded, and honestly, our scores within the 6 weeks were really successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind when I hear you share that is empowerment.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
we need to empower people. We need to help them, as we said before, to give them a voice that they can
Yes.
be heard within the organization.
Mm,
If you look at the audience that we have for this podcast, traditionally they're contact center leaders, but they're also CX leaders. And we've called this podcast the Kiwi CX Collective podcast. From a CX or customer experience perspective, tell us what you see as customer experience and how that affects not only the contact center, but other elements of the business.
right. Well, the customer is everything. So without a customer, we have no business. But we also have to realize that we can't just script everything because we have to expect the unexpected with the customer. And I think with any CX position, whether it be the contact center or marketing, etc., you've got to be able to pivot. You've got to be agile. You've got to look at your systems. You've got systems, absolutely. You've got compliance. You look at your customer outcomes. You look at everything. But again, you need to pivot because the unexpected, it's the customer. And there's also obviously your competitors. So again, you always need to up your game. You need to always know what is out there. You need to know because it's all about share of the wallet. So the customer might be your customer one day, but they might be someone else's the next day. So I think being able to upsell your products, again, it's empowering your contact center, being able to upsell and cross-sell, because the problem that we often look at is the time on the call. And absolutely, we need to look at that and the FCR, etc., and the CSAT. We have to look at that, but we also need to look at I call it the E-net promoter score, because you have to look at that. It's your team. And it really is a good pulse indicator as to the loyalty of your staff. So are your staff going to push your services, because they are, like I said, your salespeople.
Yeah.
And so I think everything customer experience it all starts with the staff. It starts inside out. So if your staff are aligned, if all of your staff, no matter what division they are in, they've got to understand your products and they've got to be passionate about your products. And if they don't understand your products, then they can't stand by your products, and they also can't answer questions about your products.
So
Yeah.
you start to mention loyalty again.
Yes.
Another favorite topic of mine. Loyalty and trust, I think, go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
In a moment, I'm going to ask you about loyalty and loyalty programs, what we can do. But I just want to share a little bit of research and some of the background that I've been involved with. And I remember as a contact center consultant years ago, where we were engaged to come in and help look at a re-engineering program in the organization. The purpose was either to go and lift revenues or reduce operational costs. So we built a business case that was based on how do we do this? And once we had an ROI, return on investment, we would invest in that.
Right.
When we went back in after the implementation, and some of these organizations were spending millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in these re-engineering programs, we went to measure the ROI, and in 80%, if not more, of the cases, no ROI. So we started to think about this and we thought, why is this happening? Is it the product? No, that was fit for purpose. Might not have been the best of the best, but it worked.
Yes.
We then knew that we had to have a process, there was a robust process that wrapped around that.
Yes.
But then it came down to the last P, which is people. And we realize that if people don't get engaged in the project,
Yes,
it will fail. If they don't believe in the
absolutely.
leader who's leading it,
Absolutely.
they will become what I termed corporate terrorists.
Yes,
These are people who not only are disengaged. So when you disengage, think of paddling your waka one way, they're paddling
yes.
the other direction.
Mm,
But those that are actively disengaged are drilling holes in the hull, trying to sink the
yes.
waka. So from a loyalty perspective, what did you find
Mm.
helps, number one, the staff become more loyal? And number two, how do you then translate that into your customer base to look at
Mm.
loyalty within the customer base?
This is so important. I mean, as you've just outlined, there's nothing wrong with the systems or the product, but it's the people.
Yep.
So, again, if you have a vision that your people have literally bought into, is absolutely key, because so often you'll see customer first in people's visions, in companies' vision
Mhm.
statements, but actually, yes, it is ROI in the room, absolutely important, but without your customers, you don't have a business.
Correct.
And your customers, and we both customers as well of many, many services and products, but we don't mind spending a little bit extra and paying a bit more if we know that the after sales service is really good.
Mm.
Um, and so what we did is we spent a lot of time focusing on our staff. And again, I mentioned empowerment, but listening. So listening and asking questions and having an open door policy. It's absolutely key, because again, so many people, and I've done it myself, I'm in marketing. We launch these amazing products and services, but we either forget to update our contact center staff, or we forget to update them, or we forget to provide them with all the information that they need.
Mm.
So that's absolutely key, is for the staff to feel that they are part of the business, that they are actually our marketers. So they're not just sitting behind a desk answering calls. They actually are the life and blood of the business. They are answering, they're often the first point of contact, the last point of contact with the customer. And again, that's what AI can never replace, is your empathy and understanding, and a core agent as well will actually know whether you're speaking to possibly an older person, a younger person. So if it's a type of product that you are selling, how do you change that conversation? AI will give you all the insights and that wonderful thing, but you need that empathy. So as a leader and as a business, you need to look at all of this with your contact center, and you just need to give them as much information, but also make it fun. So make it fun, and let them understand that they can ask questions, they can put their hands up and go, I don't know enough about this product. Or I seem to be getting a lot of the same type of queries from customers, which means marketing. We don't have enough information on the website, possibly. We don't have enough information in our guides. We don't have enough information in our product or in the boxes, or out there in our advertising. So that's another key thing that companies should be doing, is always going back to the contact center, not just this is what we're launching,
Mm.
but actually checking in with them daily. So every business, and managing various loyalty programs around the world, I've actually met with the contact center daily. What type of questions did you get yesterday? Did you get the same type of questions? What type of challenges, what type of problems are people asking? Because no customer is going to phone it, well, very few. This product was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for that. It's always going to be it's a difficult position to have as a contact center, because invariably someone's only going to see you, as they do like a doctor, when there's a problem
Yep.
or they've got a query. So marketing need to understand that, and need to always check in with the contact center and say, how's it going? What
Mm.
type of questions?
So you mentioned so many times from the beginning all the way through to now,
Yes,
communication is key, and we
absolutely.
have to constantly go back and review, refine,
Yes.
update, and acknowledge the knowledge base that our contact center staff will give us. And I think when you look at loyalty and loyalty programs, we're seeing AI come in more and more. So
Yes.
number one, our customers are using AI before they even come to us.
Right.
Number two, and I heard somebody recently share that they said AI is not going to take away jobs,
No.
but every job's going to come with AI.
Yes.
So we're going to have AI, and the contact center is a good example of being used and deployed in there, but AI does not offer empathy.
Not at all. No. I say AI is there, but it actually just amplifies everything for a contact center. So as you said, it gives you it gives you stats, it can help 24/7, but it doesn't give you that empathy. No,
So-
the human contact.
So then from a loyalty perspective for an organization with their
Yes.
customers, we're being driven in a world of ever increasing pressure, especially financial. So people, cost of living crisis, they want more for less. Are people willing to pay more in terms of a premium for a service? And does that actually lead to long-term loyalty? And why?
Well, Elias, that's a little bit of a loaded question because absolutely, I'd say people would, but it depends on the environment
Yeah.
and it depends on the product.
Hmm.
I think if it's something that you can, like fast moving FMCG, no, not necessarily. But if you're wanting to spend a little bit more on a product and a car, for example, and you wanting that after sales service, absolutely key. Or Sky TV with a Skybox, you're wanting that custom experience because yes, hoping that nothing's going to go wrong with the product. No one ever buys the product and thinking that you're going to be contacting a contact center. But it might be about something completely different. It might be the ticketing, it might be convention, it might be spas, it might be anything else. Banking is, anything else. You don't always buy a product and think you're going to be contacting the contact center. So you don't always look at how the contact is with a company post purchase or pre-purchase. But if you look at the world, I mean, it's just such a small place and people talk. So it's the user-generated content. So people will know, oh, their service is not very good, etc. But their service is amazing, that's why I always go back to them. And I think if people are, especially I think since the post-COVID days, a lot more people are a bit more pickier about what they purchase, and they definitely look at the post purchase cycle, and if they have problems, because it's easy to see, and we know what companies are really good and loyal and that have great customer. They're loyal to their customers, and vice versa, and have great customer experience. And you kind of think you know them, and you expect that of them.
I think today, if you look at customer feedback, if you don't have a Reddit account or monitoring Reddit, that can be a real danger for an organization because they can go so viral so quickly with negative as well as positive feedback. And social media has accelerated this. Post-COVID, it's like throwing fuel on the fire to just gasoline, just ignite that and get it going. We've got to be careful. We've got to monitor this. I think we're now in this omni-channel environment where people are connecting with us on social media platforms across voice and web technologies, etc. So if you were to offer some advice to somebody looking at that customer experience, what would you turn around and offer as one piece of advice?
Listen and look at what people are saying out there. So actually every single day, don't just look at your customer. Don't just look at your product, because again, it's share of the wallet. It could be your customer today, that could be gone tomorrow. So if you are, for example, in a space of selling hotel rooms, don't just look at customers that would invariably visit a hotel. Look at, well, what other restaurants are in the area? What else is coming? Because you might lose your customer to them. For example, even if you look at restaurants in the CBD, how well are they doing compared to a sea view? Are people still visiting them? What are all the other environmental factors? I think you've got to be aware. You can't be complacent. So complacency, you've got to really be very careful, and don't ever assume that your customer is going to be loyal. Because as you mentioned, financially, and look at the economy, not everyone's loyal. They often say, if you want loyalty, buy a dog. which is, the old, but honestly, and again, people speak. And as you said, the omni-channel. So I think be aware and it's also understanding that, like I said, we're both customers of various products and services. It's not always the high ticket things that you have to offer your customers. Just be aware of just the little things. It's how you make them feel.
Yeah.
And that's what we always say. People always remember you for how you make them feel. So it might even be the tone. The tone of your customer experience agents, maybe just a softer tone, or just understanding the voice of the customer.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been taking tons of notes as we've been chatting. I'm going to bring us to a close shortly. You said, look and listen. You've got to communicate. There are silos, but you've got daily stand-up. You've got challenges. Your customers first, and they're right. But it's human-centered design.
Yes.
And if you look at this, I think it's been fascinating to hear you talk about this. So if I can ask you for a final thought, what do you hope listeners take away from this episode?
I think to realize how important the contact center is, to be empathetic, like I said, to expect the unexpected. You are dealing with people, and don't look at it as change management, but look at it as people management. Absolutely key. And I mentioned it earlier, your contact center isn't a cost center. Don't see it as that. See it as a growth revenue. Because invariably, if your agents who are speaking to your customers can upsell, can cross-sell, or even just keep your customer, retain your customer, then that's absolutely key. Because in a downtime market, when customers are so financially strapped, it's not guaranteed that you've got that customer. So just continue to engage and empower your staff and to listen to your contact center. Listen to them when they say, actually, the service is really not, your product is really not that great. I think you might have to look at changing some things and tweak it. And treat them as your R&D, as your research and development team, actually, and as your marketing team. So empower them and give them as much information as you can.
Now, Debbie Klintworth from the Footprint Collective.
Yes.
If people want to reach out to have a chat with you, what's the best way for people to get hold of you?
Well, they can contact me at Footprint Collective, or they can contact me on my mobile phone.
Awesome. We'll have that in the
Wonderful.
notes, so
Wonderful.
that'll be good. Again, Debbie, thank you very much for your time today. I'm sure that we're going to get another opportunity to bring you back in to the studio and have another conversation. But again, thank you for your time and your wisdom today.
Thank you, Ellis. I thoroughly enjoyed that.